On December 7th, 1989, Gojo Satoru burst onto the scene, and with his birth, the balance of the world changed. Gojo is unquestionably the most powerful sorcerer of the modern era, with the entirety of the Jujutsu world revolving around his existence. But why exactly is Gojo so powerful? Most people attribute Gojo's power to his curse technique, Limitless. Limitless is confusing for some people. However, that's when you attempt to explain how it works. It's much easier to understand when you just look at its function. Limitless is effectively space manipulation, with several varieties of application. The neutral form of Limitless is Infinity, and arguably Gojo's most iconic technique. Infinity infinitely divides the space between Gojo and objects approaching him, in effect, slowing them down before they can ever reach him. This means that normally, most people or objects are not able to touch Gojo unless he allows them to. Gojo is still able to touch others, as I suppose the way Infinity functions, it only stops others from approaching him and not the other way around. He can activate and deactivate it however he wishes. There is then Blue, the positive application of Infinity, which produces a vacuum between spaces in order to draw them together. This can be used to close gaps, as well as crush people or objects into a fine paste. There is then Red, the curse technique reversal of Blue. This creates a propulsive force that repels all matter in its vicinity. It typically manifests as basically a giant energy wave that flattens almost anything in its way. Then you have perhaps Gojo's most potent technique, Hollow Purple. This is a combination of red and blue that creates an imaginary mass that destroys anything in its path. There are some arguments over what exactly it does. Gege himself has apparently admitted that he didn't entirely understand imaginary mass when he created the technique, so this created a false perception that it's able to delete matter and ignores durability. It's really unclear exactly how it functions, but generally speaking, it seems to just kind of erase almost anything it comes into contact with. Finally, we have arguably Gojo's most powerful technique, his domain expansion, Unlimited Void. We have not seen him use any actual techniques inside his domain expansion. However, Gojo's is one of the few we've seen that has a passive effect that comes from being inside of it, possibly its sure-hit effect. That being the overloading of the brain with infinite information. Anytime a being is trapped within Unlimited Void, their mind is overloaded with all information in existence, very rapidly, with 0.2 seconds worth of exposure, forcing normal humans to experience several months worth of knowledge. Fortunately, this is not enough to cause permanent damage, which leads into one of the most impressive aspects of Gojo's usage of domain expansion, that being his ability to activate and deactivate it very rapidly. He was able to use Unlimited Void for just 0.2 seconds for the purpose of stunning cursed spirits and allowing him to kill all of them without them being able to harm any civilians or any harm coming to civilians trapped within his domain. Now, there are some ways to overcome Infinity, and it does have some weaknesses, most notably the fact that these incredibly powerful techniques use up a great deal of cursed energy, meaning that, theoretically, even if Gojo's moves are very powerful, he can tire out very quickly from using them, right? We now get into the next facet of why Gojo is so powerful, that being his very iconic 6 eyes. The 6 eyes are not super well explained as of yet. There are some unknowns about their exact functions. We know that they seem to be something passed down in the Gojo family, inherited amongst some generations of the clan, seemingly only just in individuals, and allows for some amount of enhanced perception, better analysis of various universal forces, allows him to see people from very great distances. However, the most relevant aspect of the Six Eyes to Gojo's power is the fact that it reduces his cursed energy usage to effectively 0. Meaning that no matter how powerful and costly Gojo's techniques are, he can just keep using them pretty much infinitely. You know, red, blue, purple, his domain expansion, those should be incredibly costly techniques, but Gojo can just keep using them without limit. Now, even then, Gojo should still have some weaknesses. For starters, there are ways to deactivate cursed techniques, meaning that Gojo is no longer untouchable in combat. And even if he never runs out of cursed energy, his body can still be exhausted from constant usage of it, right? Well, Gojo is incredibly skilled at cursed energy reinforcement and hand-to-hand combat, as we've seen in a few circumstances. So even if an opponent finds a way to touch Gojo, that doesn't mean they can just beat him. I mean, aren't most people able to touch each other in a fight? Most people do not have a barrier that prevents all contact. However, there are still plenty of people who various characters have no hope of beating. You also have Gojo's application of reverse curse technique, allowing him to constantly refresh his brain and body so that he is never exhausted, and due to his possession of the Six Eyes, he never runs out of cursed energy for the incredibly costly reverse curse technique, meaning that Gojo can infinitely refresh his body as he infinitely is able to use his incredibly powerful techniques. Some of this can maybe be chalked up to the fact that Gojo has at some point experienced Black Flash, giving him a perception of the core of cursed energy and a greater understanding of its application. We have not seen him use it in the series, but we're well aware of how Black Flash is able to affect the growth and proficiency of a sorcerer, so it probably explains quite a few things about Gojo's absolute mastery over seemingly every concept of Jujutsu sorcery. Gojo is not the strongest because of his technique. His technique is a contributing factor into him being the strongest, but it's not the only reason. Gojo is the strongest because every potential weakness that he could have is overcome by something else. His Limitless makes him effectively untouchable for most opponents. However, if his opponents do find a way to touch him, he is still more than capable of handling them in a more traditional battle. His techniques are incredibly costly. However, his Six Eyes make it so that he never runs out of cursed energy. Gojo accounts for essentially any weakness that a sorcerer can have. And that's why, amongst all of the Jujutsu sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen, with all of their incredibly powerful techniques or innate attributes or mastery over the concepts of Jujutsu, Gojo still stands head and shoulders above the vast majority of them as the most powerful character in Jujutsu Kaisen. But with that, that's all I've got for today's video. If you guys enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Jujutsu Kaisen chapter reactions and reviews every week that we get a new chapter. If you enjoy discussing Jujutsu Kaisen with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce in this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I've linked to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.